first race form. Yes, darling, whatever you say. There, you see, Mary said, regarding her siblings with a superior air. Abby is much needed in Suffolk. I am the wife of a baronet, after all. I cannot be chasing after a pair of 3-year-old boys. It isn't dignified. Oh, pooh! Rosalind waved her hand. A title doesn't make you any better than the rest of us, nor should your wishes take precedence over mine. Clifford frowned. Nevertheless, Mary is right. You've no need of Abby until spring. As for you, Mary, you ought to hire an extra nanny for a few months rather than drag Abby halfway across the country. This is her home, after all. She ought to remain here. Hire an extra nanny? Mary looked aghast at the prospect. She could be pleasant company, except in matters of money, when her skinflint nature rose to the fore. Only think of the expense. I must concur with Clifford, James said. He was a slim man in a clerical collar who exuded a gentle demeanour that helped him to shepherd his flock. There are needs greater than yours, I'm afraid. Now that the new baby has arrived, it has been a blessing to have Abby so close to the village. Daphne can scarcely find time to breathe between caring for our 3 other children and fulfilling the duties of a vicar's wife. It has indeed been difficult, Daphne said, languidly waving an ivory fan at her pretty face. There are times when I'm quite overwhelmed, and Abby's help has been a godsend. Heaven knows, Freddie is very blessed to have the loving care of his aunt. At the sound of his mamma's voice, the baby stirred restlessly in his sleep, and Abby walked back and forth to settle him. She told herself to be grateful that she was needed, grateful that her siblings desired her assistance, grateful that she would always have a home with one of them. Nevertheless, a rare knot of resentment tightened inside her. They were speaking of her future, yet she might as well be invisible for as much as they consulted her wishes on where she preferred to live. Perhaps it was her looming birthday that made her feel so prickly. In a fortnight she would turn 30 years of age. 30, with no husband or children to call her own. The youngest by 7 years, she'd been the surprise child, born when their mother had been in her middle 40s. While her siblings had wed and started families, the task of caring for their aging parents had fallen to Abby. In her youth, when she ought to have enjoyed a season in London, being courted by a bevy of eligible gentlemen, she had remained here in Hampshire because Mamma had broken her hip in a tumble from a horse and had never regained complete mobility. As well, Papa had come to depend on Abby to help with the research for his book on medieval history. Her 20s had slipped away as she'd busied herself with tending to their needs. Then, less than a year ago, both her parents had fallen ill with influenza. Their deaths had been a shock. She had spent her entire life in their company, and for months afterward she had grieved. Today, in deference to the happy occasion, she'd put off her blacks for a gown of dove grey. The rest of the family had donned brighter colours weeks ago. Of course, none of her siblings had had such a special closeness to their parents as she'd had, nor did they quite understand the sacrifices she'd made. Not that she had minded, certainly not. She dearly loved Mamma and Papa. Their care had never been a burden. Yet now, contemplating the rest of her life, Abby felt a disquiet that bordered on panic. Was this to be her future? Was she doomed to be shuttled among her siblings, never having a place to call her own? When she grew old and grey, would there come a time when her nieces and nephews squabbled over who must take her in? Running a fingertip over the baby's soft cheek, Abby knew with a pang that life had passed her by. The romantic dreams of her youth had burned to ashes. She was a spinster. In all likelihood, she would never know marriage or motherhood. Oh, she'd had a few suitors over the years. One, quite recently, Mr. Babcock, a gentleman farmer, had offered for her this past spring, but she'd put him off with a polite refusal. Nevertheless, he'd declared his intention to ask again, once her full year of mourning was over. Abby toyed with the notion of accepting him. Mr. Babcock was a decent man, solid and respectable, but she would have to share the same house with his hen-pecking mother and strict Calvinistic father. Was she truly so desperate as to wed someone whose